Welcome to another edition of Spits and Suds, or as we like to call them, one-timers. And we're really, really happy to catch up with this guy. Excited to have him on Spits and Suds. Brad Lukowich joins us, good old Western Canadian, living in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. You remember him playing for the Dallas Stars, winning a Stanley Cup for the Dallas Stars. Brad, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. Yourself?
Yeah, I'm doing great. I'm doing great.
Attaboy.
I wanted to start because I think you have so many facets that are fascinating in your NHL career that people might not know. But this is like a kind of a look back in time. So
Okay.
you were born and raised in Cranbrook, which is kind of a railroad town in Western British Columbia, correct?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so your father played in the NHL, and I always like
Correct.
to ask people whose parents played and were professional athletes, how that affects you growing up. Were there pressures, or was it, Brad, you do whatever makes you happy? And how did him playing professional hockey, because he played for a couple of teams, and then he played for Calgary in the WHA.
Yeah.
And how did that affect you growing up?
Well, my dad was my hero, still is my hero. Was my coach growing up all the way through, right from a young age. There's a kind of a cool connection. My cousin Morris also played in the National Hockey League. He wound up playing for the old purple yellow LA Kings. Our hometown, the Cranbrook Royals, were the same colors. It just worked out that way, and we're so when I would see Lukowich on TV, and then we go live. I kind of was a little young. I was like 3, 4 years old at the time. So in my mind, my dad was still in the NHL. He was going to the rink and seeing my dad out on the ice. I'd come home and I'd hear the name Lukowich. So I thought my dad was just like the greatest player still at that point. So for me, it was pretty cool growing up. I had a rink in the backyard. He was always the guy that I could look to and ask questions to get better. I wanted to be just like my dad. What did you do to be a better player as a kid? Well, he did this, he did that. He's always at the rink shooting pucks. He was a little rink rat, he'd call himself. Back in the day, he'd hanging out in Battleford, Saskatchewan. He'd hang out after. Back then, they didn't have Zambonis. They had like this big cart, and he'd put the hot water in there with the rag on the back, and they pull the cart around the ice. That's how you learn how to skate or push it. So there's
Wow.
yeah, back in the day, there's man-powered Zambonis back in the day. My dad was one of those. So he did the same thing with me. We were always on ponds. We were always finding places to skate. You miss the net playing on the lake. You got to go pretty far to go get the puck back. So you learn to hit the net at a young age when you're playing on the ponds up in British Columbia. So it was just always around me. My dad was my hero. So to me, it was just, that was my only goal. That was all I was going to do when I grew up. I didn't really care about anything else other than playing hockey.
Now, did you skate at the Memorial Ice Arena up there?
I did. Absolutely.
Nice.
It's got some
Kind of a
issues right
historic
now, though.
rink.
It does, but it's got some problems. The roof's caving in. We gotta go in there and save it. There's like all the ice in Cranbrook is going to be outdoor rinks pretty soon. It's not favorable up there right now.
All right. You know what we need is we got to use some of that Niedermeyer money.
Oh man, they've done a lot in that city. They've owned a hockey team, they've sold a hockey team, they've
Yeah.
been back involved with a hockey team, so they do a ton up there.
So you're basically kind of around the same age as Robin Scott. Did you guys grow up together, hanging out?
The Brookview Bombers, they were like, so they had a little cul-de-sac area that, so when you drive up Victoria Avenue in Cranbrook, right before you go up this big hill that kind of leads out of town, to the left-hand side, there was Brookview Crescent. So the guys that lived in there were the Maudis, who was a really good buddy of mine, Bob and Alan Maudie. So Bob Maudie was a Brookview Bomber. Then he ran around the corner, and there was the Canes. So Ryan Kane, Dallas Kane, they were part of the Brookview Bombers. And then you had Scotty and Robbie that were there shooting pucks every single day. You could hear the ting of all the time. So they actually had like jean jackets with Brookview Bombers on the back. I wasn't cool enough. I never got to be a Bomber. I tried to be a Brookview Bomber, but I wasn't cool enough. But they were the talk of the town since they were little. Their mom, Mrs. Niedermeyer, and Doc Niedermeyer, Mrs. Niedermeyer was everybody's power skating coach. We were all in the figure skating extravaganzas at Christmas. There was a little power. I think I wore a letter. I was like a letter once, like an M. I skated around the ice and stuff. But she was our power skating coach. So it was a really tight community, real bunch of good guys that came out of the Brookview area as well. I lived down about a mile away, and I would just run down this. I had a straight shot to their, because you could always go there and play. They always knew they were playing hockey. So if you're looking to play a pickup game, street hockey, you could always go to there, because Scotty and Robbie were always taking shots either you're taking shots at the net, working on their shot, or they're out playing in the with all the other neighbors in the big floor hockey game or road hockey game.
Wow. And former
Yeah.
Stars D-man John Clem lived in that area too.
Yeah, again, he lived on the other side. He wasn't a Bomber. The Bombers, that's a pretty special thing to be. When Scotty got his big deal, he bought like a Ford Bronco, and they would and he bought like those jean jackets. They all had Brookview Bomber. Everybody was so jealous of it. It's such a corny thing, but it wound up being pretty cool.
It's like
And
the hockey version of West Side Story.
Yeah, everybody wanted to be a Bomber.
So like if you were the Bombers and you were meeting at like a local restaurant in Cranbrook and you saw, Clem or someone else, like, you drop in the mitts because they're on the wrong side, right?
Clemmer's a little bit older than me. He's a good dude. He's one of those guys that you'd go into John Clem is like one of the hardest working guys you'll ever meet. Like you'd go into the gym, or even if you played, like we had this guy named Enzo in Cranbrook. He would run the summer league for us. We had guys that coming in from Castlegar, Trail, Kimberly, Fernie. We had the Mattisdorfers, we had Weimer, Xavier Magic, Travis Green. So all these guys would come into Cranbrook because we had good ice there, and they'd put it in early. So we had a really cool little group of guys. Well, John Clem would be out there, no shoulder pads on, first skate out there, sliding in front of people, like blocking shots. They're like, Clemmer, like, we got 6 weeks till we got to be at camp, man. Like, take it down a notch. But he wouldn't. He would be going hard. He'd be block. He's just that guy that was always the hardest working guy. You go to the gym, he'd be in there for 3-4 hours. You'd be in there for an hour. You maybe come back an hour later or drive by on your way to the beach, pulling the boat. And you look over and there's Clemmer's truck. So Clemmer was a bit of a guy that was just that. He didn't talk much, but he was always just, you could just see him always working, and he just made his way. And he wound up, look at him, he wound up being an excellent professional, won a couple cups.
Yeah. And another Cranbrook kid who went on to be pretty good, Stevie Eiserman. That was about a 10-year difference from you. But did you know Steve? And, was he well known? Because, that rise to prominence was pretty quick.
Yeah, so he was there. Again, I never met him at that level. He's older than me and had left already. Believe he was like more that he was born there, played a couple of years, and then he moved out. But the significance was we actually wore the red and white. So the Cranbrook youth teams there wore the Detroit uniforms growing up. Kind of in homage to him. They changed those colors. They went right to the Detroit colors. Before they were the Montreal colors. They had the blue stripe on there. They removed that. So Eiserman was kind of our guy that put us on the map locally. But really what it came down to was the coaching in the area. Cranbrook Minor Hockey Association was the Canadian Association of the Year. They have a guy there named Colin Patterson that is just an incredible coach. He was my coach. My dad was an assistant coach with him. He coached the Niedermeyers. He coached everybody. He coached me when I was in playing for the Cranbrook Colts. He wound up playing for the Kootenay Ice. This guy was the reason why Cranbrook hockey was so incredible. Mr. Patterson was just an ultimate teacher. He could just slow it down. He was a math teacher as well at the local middle school. So he just had that in him to be a good teacher, but he could really transfer it onto the ice. And just constantly was turning out really good players. And I think that really comes down just to the coaching level. We didn't have a lot to do there. So for those guys to keep us in the rink and keep us out of trouble was a big, big undertaking for those guys. And Mr. Patterson led the way with that. And I really believe that's the reason why Cranbrook just kept on putting out those for 10 years, the Stanley Cup was won by someone from Cranbrook.
Yeah.
every single year. I mean, that goes back to coaching. That goes back to that. That's what we as the players can remember, is giving it back to those guys.
Were you ever in a scrum with like Stevie Y or, I mean, the Niedermeyers obviously knew you, but you're like, come on, I'm a Cranbrook kid. Go easy on me.
No, no, I chirped Kirk Maltby from Detroit though once, and I was like saying like, "Oh, nobody likes you. Like every guy on your team doesn't even like you." And Eiserman turned around and goes, "That's not true. That's not true." And I immediately just shut up. Like, well, like he's royalty. I'll just take my seat over here. Like, I guess if Steve likes him, I'll be okay. So no, I again to this day, he probably wouldn't even know who I was to this day, other than a guy that he played against. To me, yeah, Stevie Y has always been royalty, but the Niedermeyer guys never got into it with Scotty. Never got into it. Rob was a little bit more physical, so we
Yeah, he was.
bumped into each other a little bit more. Um, no, those guys, John Clem, never bumped into him. Jason Weimer used to run me over daily. He's from Kimberly, but man, he made a habit of that every game. He made sure, and he always turned around and give you a little, just like we were in Bantam, right? He was a man
Oh,
child, and he was huge in Pee Wees and Bantams, and nothing changed. His game was the same way when he played in the show. He just absolutely wrecked guys, and I was one of those guys. So we never went at it. We never threw the mitts, and thankfully, because he probably would have pounded me pretty good.
so then you go from, successful juniors, Cranbrook, and then all of a sudden you find yourself on the Kamloops Blazers.
Yeah,
And I was looking at that squad earlier. I'm just going to throw some names out. This is incredible. I mean, 2 Memorial
yeah,
Cups, played
yeah.
3 years there. Uh, Darcy Tucker, Shane Doan, Tyson Nash, Jerome McGinley, Baumgardner, Jason Strudwick. I mean, no wonder you won, multiple Memorial Cups. It was an absolutely stacked junior team.
Yeah, Mr. Brown did such an amazing job, and Stu McGregor, those guys putting that together. So when we got I got lucky. I'll be straight up. My story is simple. I was a 14-year-old little guy in Bantam. So my first year Bantam, the draft year, I was small, didn't get drafted. Got some invitations to some camps though, but throughout that year, I started to grow. So you know, what do I do at the end of the year? I actually wanted to go to Brandon Wheat Kings. That was my number one pick that I wanted to go to, but I didn't have a ride. I didn't know how to get to camp. And my buddy Bob Motti, one of the Brookview Bombers, was drafted, I think, in the second or third round by the Blazers. And Mrs. Motti was like, "Hey, if you need a ride, Bob's gone. You could always come to the Kamloops camp." And I was like, "Let's do it." Jumped in the van with those guys, me and my mom and Mrs. Motti and Bob. We drove up to camp. I had an excellent camp. I actually got smoked. Daryl Sador took my head off coming across the blue line. My very first shift, I was like, "Oh boy, this is a whole other level." Like 20-year-olds, it doesn't matter. 18-year-olds, 14-year-olds, they don't care. They're coming for you. That was a very big learning experience. But it was like, okay, either lay down and take it or get up and do something about it. So I took that route and went out and had an excellent camp. They listed me at the end of that camp. And then I had a really good 15-year-old year. My last year Bantam, I grew. I was about 5'10". I was about 180 pounds by then. I didn't quite make the team as a 16-year-old, which is probably the best thing that ever happened to me. It was a big slice of humble pie for one. I really wanted to be a Kamloops Blazer, but you know what? I wasn't there yet physically, probably not mentally either. But I got an opportunity to go back to the Rocky Mountain Hockey League, the old Cranbrook Colts, which at the time was where Kamloops was affiliated with. My dad was an assistant coach. Colin Patterson was the head coach. And I got to play. I got to play against some really good players. Dave Scatchard was in Kimberly, Jason Weimer, those guys. We got to battle it out with those guys. I had a fantastic year, put up some numbers, learned how to fight, learned how to take a butt kicking as well, and keep on going and recover from that. There's some big boys. And then my 17-year-old year, it was, this is it. You got to make this team. I went into Kamloops and made that squad. And thankfully, I just slowly, I was like the sixth, seventh guy and just kind of got a little bit better.
I mean,
And eventually,
you're all kids, But at the same time, I mean, you have some amazing leaders in that room
Oh yeah.
besides yourself. I mean, you got a Ginla, you got Doan, who go on to become NHL captains. Did you see those leadership skills at that point when your guys are just teenagers?
Yeah, oh yeah, Donor and Iggy were on a completely different level. You have to understand the competitiveness nature of these two guys. I mean, for one, Jerome can always do one thing better than you. He's always a little bit stronger. He can get there a little faster. That was the mentality that he had. So it drove us to try to. Oh, I got to beat Jerome. You got to get better than Jerome. You go in. If he even heard that someone went into the weight room and bench pressed 200 pounds 10 times, he was going to go in there and bench 200 pounds 11 times or 205 pounds 10 times. He was always going to, and he did it until he could do it. He was just the ultimate guy that just drove himself to be better, which in turn drove us to be better. And then man-child Shane Doan was just this massive dude that on the ice would just go out and play the game the right way. He didn't take a lot of penalties. He didn't mess with them. He always stuck up for his teammates. Again, just a example of leadership at 16, 17 that just carried on for the guy's complete career. There's no shock to me that Shane did what he did and is still doing what he's doing.
You probably had a unique perspective, not to jump ahead, but when the trade happened at the trade deadline to acquire Joe Nieuwendyk for Jarome Iginla, you were probably sitting back and say, that's awesome, but do they really know what they got in this kid Iginla?
Yeah, I mean, that was, give up a long future. I mean, Jerome may have played here his whole career. Dallas had a reputation of doing that back in the day versus, we want to win right now. So bringing in a Joe with some experience and the leadership on that side of things. But look what Jerome did in Calgary, so I think both teams won. There's no loser in that one at all. I would say city wise, Jerome might have lost out. Dallas is a pretty cool city. Not that Calgary isn't, but Dallas is pretty awesome. I mean, I don't think there's too many guys in the league that haven't came and played here for the visiting team and wanted to stay. It's just an amazing city. So, but hey, Calgary got what they got. They got a lot of good time with Jerome. Jerome did a fantastic job of being an ambassador for the Flames. So yeah, I mean, I think again, both winners.
Yeah, sick year for Darcy Tucker for the Kamloops that year. 134 points.
Yeah. Sorry, my dogs are attacking the neighbor's dog. Yeah, Tux again, and people that don't know Darcy's just a little dude. So sorry about my dogs.
No, it's okay.
It's real life, people. So yeah, Darcy Tucker is just a fantastic player. Playing with Tux, I think we fought maybe once every week, once every twice or so a week in the practices. That's how competitive this guy was. That's how our practices were ran. We played just like we practiced so hard. We were out there for 2 hours. We had 45 minutes. They'd do the ice. We'd come back out, go out for another 45 minutes. Our practices were very intense. Hazer held us to a top level. And if we weren't kind of bumping into each other, getting each other's kitchens, it would show in the games. So to see Darcy put up 134 points, how many penalty minutes did he have that year? He's like Al Secord.
94.
94. So the one year he stayed out of the box, he put up 134 points.
Donor had 106 penalty minutes that year.
Right? What year was that? Our last year, our 19-year-old year?
That was 94, 95.
Right. So that's the year we won it at home. Not a shabby year. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. For reference, Mr. Lukowich was 125 PIMs. So you were a busy man in the sin.
Yeah. Well, we had, that was the Wild West. There was a couple scraps back then, and you had your couple guys. Terry Ryan was a good guy that he'd help you get a couple PIMs at the end of the game if you wanted to. So me and him would tussle. He was a good guy. Jeremy Thompson, great fighter. We'd go back and forth, fight each other. I think we fought each other 6 or 7 times over our careers. So there's certain guys that on the other side you're going to be. I was more of a middleweight type of guy. The Chris Murrays of the world, like that guy was just an absolute killer that fought the Rocky Thompsons. So I was more in the middle, and there's more guys in the middle, middleweight type guys than there is at the top. And then you got your little weight guys, but I would say I was more in the middleweight fashion. I definitely wasn't one of the top guys in there.
Yeah.
But there, it kept me busy. It was a wild time back then, and we played pretty heavy. We had no problem burying a team 10-0 in those games there. You know how those get. So many a times we played games where all the gloves were on the ice back in
So
the day. It was a lot of fun.
drafted by the Islanders,
Yeah,
and then you're traded to the Stars, and you're
yeah,
playing in their minor system, and then all of a sudden you get that call up at a pivotal time. It
yeah.
was and you're all of a sudden you're entering a room with all of these NHL vets finding your way. What was that like heading into that room?
That was a pretty. I mean, it was an intimidating room, but a very comfortable room because the guys were just so they're kind of over the whole rookie thing. They'd been around it too much. So really, they brought you in. I mean, these guys were all married. I think the only guys that weren't were Madonna, at the time. And he was one of the closest guys in ages. I mean, G. Carbonell, I think I was at his 43rd birthday. He's still playing, stuff like that. His daughter's closer to me in age, who wound up marrying Brendan Morrow. Like that was kind of the age differences back in the olden days when you had those guys. When I got called up, actually, I was in Kalamazoo. They told me the day before, stick by the phone. You're playing pretty good right now. There's a chance we're going to do something. We don't know what it's going to be, but it may involve bringing you up or you're going somewhere type of deal. I got the opportunity. They actually traded Sergei Gusev to Tampa Bay for Benoit Hogue, opening up a spot. They had just brought Doug Lidster in as an extra guy as well. I got called up, didn't play the first couple of games, and then Mr. Hatcher decided to take some revenge out on Jeremy Roenick. We all know that story. He got a 10-game suspension. That was my birth. That was when I got an opportunity to play. So I got an opportunity to play right then, and it was seize the day and sit around. And when that happened, actually, the first couple of games, it might have been Anaheim or something, where we started getting a short bench as well. Some fights happened. Some guys got kicked out. Hadn't played much really, and Hitch kind of came down, and Wilson, and they were right behind me. What do I do? Play the kid, play him. If he makes a mistake, he's supposed to. If he doesn't, we look great. Like right behind me. I'm like, okay, here we go. Went out there and played pretty decent. I was nervous, but we got out and did my thing and got an opportunity. Just slowly got a little bit more confidence. The guys were really good. Craig Ludwig, probably the nicest guy I've ever met. Don't tell anybody that because he's supposed to be this big lurking tough guy, but he's just a sweetheart. Really put me under his wing. Told me how to act. Like basically, you got to show up here. Make sure you're not doing this off the ice. Basically, gave me this is the rules of the roost of this group right here, and he brought me in under his wing, and ever since he's still one of my best buddies to this day. So it was just
Yeah.
that was the way that group was. It was really a lot of teaching from the players. Yeah, Hitch had a lot, Will said a lot, Jarv said a lot, but it was the guys in the room that would after a game just come and sit down and sit beside you and be like, hey, that play before that they're all over you about, all you got to do is pass it. Well, Holly would always go, all you got to do is pass it to me. Pass it to the best player on the ice. But
Wow.
they would make it light. There was no you're this guy. So it was a really good room. I'm very blessed to be a part of it. It's why I had a long career. They taught me how to be respectful and how to be respected as well.
Yeah, I told Luds he doesn't want to talk about it, but I said you need to be in the Stars Hall of Fame just
It really
because of
does.
what you were in that room and kind of the go between with Hitch and some of the players,
Yeah.
and the experience you brought. And he kind of brushes it to the side, but I mean, I think his name has to go up.
Oh, I agree. I couldn't agree more. There's that from that team. I think you just kind of go from the top and just
Yeah,
start working your way through. Guys like Kirk Muller, like Carbonell, like just the names are just there to be put in the Hall of Fame. I mean, they've got the Dallas Stars Hall of Fame. I think they've got 2 years down right now. Well, they've definitely got 10 years of people that they can just pick off of that team right there, all the way from the top guys right down to the bottom guys. A lot of guys have done a lot of good things in the game, not only in Dallas, but extending their career as well.
And now they have these speed competitions in the NHL All-Star game, and you could see how fast like a Connor McDavid is or a Nathan McKinnon. And I wanted to ask your perspective because they didn't do it back then. You get called up. How fast was Mike Modano?
He didn't. Well, it was like he wasn't on the ice. It was like he kind of hopped. You know, he was like gliding or floating, or his jersey would like wave. It was just he is a different type of. It was a different type of speed. There's some fast guys out there, but Mo did things that were just so flowy and so like he'd kind of he'd wow you on simple things, just flying down the right side or flying down the left side, flying down the middle. Just watching him skate and pick up a puck and go and get a shot on net. He could it just looks so natural to him, which would be just us on fast forward. He was incredible. It really, he just moved at a different speed.
Were you surprised coming down south? I don't know if that was your first time coming down south, as far as how much the fan base was into hockey and what it was like playing in the Reunion Arena.
Yeah, it was awesome. Coming down, like you got off the plane. We stayed at the old Harvey Hotel out near DFW Airport. There was signage everywhere. Like there was signs on people's cars, like those flags. They were everywhere. You walked into the hotel, official hotel of the Dallas Stars development camp. You go downtown, every mall, our jerseys were everywhere, hats, people were wearing hats. The malls had stuff, every single store. There's signs on every window. You're like, where are we in Edmonton or Calgary? Like, no, this is no, they were in Dallas, and it wasn't like just one guy. You know, you had the bad boys, which were the Ludwigs. You know, they had the Darian Hatcher. They all had the motorcycles. Guy Carbonell. There was that crew of guys, and then you had the Madonnas. When the Brett Hull came in, there was a whole mystique about bringing in Brett Hull, Joe Newendike, having Joe Newendike come in. And it was incredible how many fans that were living in Dallas that were really old school hockey fans that were just blessed to have a team finally come to their town. They embraced it. We'd go to like an offsite practice, and there would be you couldn't get in for one, so we have to stop the bus early. We have to walk through all these people. The people wouldn't even be able to see the practice, and they'd still be there after waiting for us just to catch a glimpse. It was like we were like rock stars. It was incredible. Absolutely love the way the fans are here, and they still are. Dallas has an incredible fan base.
Were you in the room when the famous Pantera, the CD hasn't arrived yet story happened?
Yeah, I'm the guy that was in charge of the CDs.
Okay.
Guess who forgot it?
Yeah, so Lutz was trying to take you off the hook the other day when I was talking to him. He said that no. He goes, it wasn't Luke, it was one of the trainers.
Well, yeah, but it depends on how you talk to. So some guys, well, the trainers definitely blame me, right? So, okay, so the room, I actually, if you want, I can go get the CD box. It's in that room right over there.
You have the
So
CD box.
I have all the CDs. I have the ones from the Tampa Bay Lightning and all the Dallas Stars ones. So yeah, they would get packed. We had an actual sound box that they took an old warehouse crate and took those old Bose systems and built a big system. So we had like a killer sound system that traveled with us, and then it had the 5 changer in there. That's where the CDs were supposed to be. And then we were in Dallas. I didn't take it out of the thing at the end and put it back in the case. That was my part. I didn't take it out of the case. Then I took the cases and I put them where they're supposed to be. I forgot to take it out of the case. Or out of the machine. I just put them where they're supposed to go. They made it to St. Louis. We went in there. So I put on, what was it? The first song was, oh man, you're going to push me now. Oh, is Kid Rock, the cowboy song. That was
Yep.
these songs are called the Big Four. So there was that song. And then we played Whiskey in the Jar, the Metallica. There was another Metallica song, and then Nothing Else Matters. And then when we were in St. Louis, we needed a little extra push. And we went to put on the CD, and it wasn't there. They knew about it. They legit got a guy. I think they got either a guy on a plane or they got it they got it there. It wound up in St. Louis. Like it wound up and they actually got it there eventually. But yeah, that was quite the controversy over it.
So Lud says the whole room was sitting down. Hitch comes in, tells you guys to get on the ice. Lud says, we're not going on the ice. Hitchcock starts swearing and says, get the F
Yep.
on the ice. And Lud says, no, we're not going on the ice. I
Yep.
know the CD is in the arena. And when we hear that music, we'll get up. And apparently, once you guys heard it, it was almost like you had practiced it on cue. Everyone rose and went on the ice, fired up.
Yeah. I mean, that's the magic of Pantera, man. That'll do it to you.
Wow.
It was awesome,
Wow.
man. And our relationship with those guys was so cool too. So it
Yeah.
was, oh man, it was quite the time to be to wear a Stars uni.
Wow. Okay. So the Stars go on to win the Stanley Cup. And here's my
Yep.
rant, because your name is not on the Stanley Cup, and that's effed up.
Yeah.
It's wrong. I mean, you played, and apparently, there's a rule that you have to play so many games,
Yeah.
and you were a part of that team. And I don't understand it to this day. And my question is does it bother you?
I think it'd bother me more if I didn't win it in 04 with Tampa.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I actually yelled that out on the ice in Tampa pretty loud to the hockey gods. Was like, I got my name on it now.
Yeah.
you can't keep me off. You can't keep me off this time. And I was, I was pumped about it. Yeah, it was to me, and that's and not in my defense, but to defend any of the guys that have ever been in the same situation. It's not called the NHL Finals or the NHL. It's not an NHL tournament. It's the Stanley Cup playoffs. It starts in game one, and the guy in game one that does one shift that helps you win is just as important as the guy that plays one shift at the end. That's only my opinion. I mean, I've had this conversation with a lot of guys. Some guys are, hey, yeah, the rules are the rules. Like, all right, I get you. More of the people are on the side of, yeah, I see your point where, if you're in a tournament and you play a game, you're part of the team. I didn't get my one shift in the final series, so it's unfortunate. I almost did though. Holly, I don't think Holly would have been able to play game 7. I don't think a lot of guys would have been able to play game 7. So, but then again, I may have been in the same situation, and the rest of our guys wouldn't have got their names on the cup either. We don't know what kind of shape Buffalo was in at the end of game 6 or games, but I know the shape that our guys were in, and our guys gave every single thing they possibly could to win that game.
Yeah. Did you get a day with the cup?
Yep. I got every single bit of it. I was a part of every single bit except for that. That was kind of and I didn't know. So I didn't know until we came back to Dallas, and they have like a dinner and the cup's there. So it's the Stanley Cup dinner prior. It's like a couple days before the beginning of the season. We all go in and the cup's sitting there. It was like it was on 35. It was like a steak restaurant. And I walk in and the cup's sitting right there. And there's all these frames. Like it's just a frame, and it's a zoomed in picture of the cup where your name is. And I'm like, I go in there and I'm looking, I'm like, what the hell? Mine's not there. So I kind of turn around and I see the guys and their eyes are like, I'm like, my name's not on the cup. They're like, no, I'm like, well, what the hell am I doing here? So I turned around and I left. I was pretty choked. So I left that dinner. Yeah, so I didn't stick around for that dinner. I left. I got in trouble for leaving, but I left. And because I mean that's who it was for. That was for all the guys that won the cup. So got their name on the cup. That wasn't for me. So I left. Left me a little bit sour, but just gave me more, just a little bit of more fight in the game to try and get it back on there. And then we lost in Jersey. That was like, oh my God, this is never going to happen now.
Yeah. Did they apologize for not telling you?
No.
Or did they just assume you knew? That's weird.
Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was, it was an awkward one. Yeah, it was awkward.
Okay. Yeah, no, totally. You had every right to leave. All right. So like Stars fans still talk to this day about the pool party. And were you at the pool party? I see.
I got pictures in there too.
So, yeah. So I'm assuming you were, and I'm assuming it was a.
So was my 16-year-old brother.
What's that?
Yeah. Yeah. So was my 16-year-old brother. He was
Oh
there.
no.
Oh yeah, he was awesome. My brother Matty, he was awesome. So the whole night, yeah, I mean, obviously we started off at the Big Apple. The Stars did it right. They gave us these limousines. So they rented like 5 limousines and you had a number. No one was allowed to drink and drive. So we always had constant drivers. We were all very taken care of, as safe as possible. We started off that night at the Big Apple, and it was this is our night to go really hard. And I show up at the Big Apple in the limo with a couple. I think Johnson was there, Sloan, Turks, and those guys. So we all pull in, and Matt Machuk and Hatch had kind of given me the like, "Where's your brother?" And I'm like, he's 16. This is probably not. He goes, "No, no, no. Anything. We're good. The apple's cool. They're going to put X's on his hands. It'll all be fine." I'm like, "All right, cool." So call. So I call up the limo. They go pick up my brother. He's there in about 45 minutes. So I see him at the door. Hey, bud, yeah, they're going to do this thing here. So, man, be good. Don't get in any trouble. There's, this is big city. About 15 minutes later, I'm looking around. Where's my brother? And I look over, and he's standing on the edge of one of those beer tubs, and hearing boom, he does a big dive into the beer tub. Like, oh, the Lukowiches are
Oh.
here. Here we go. So my brother was like just rocking and rolling with the Pantera guys, with us. Eventually, the party shifts over to his house, or to Vinny's house. My brother and Brent Severin are the two guys that got the cup out of the bottom of the pool.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had to go down, swim down, then because it filled up with water and it was just sitting on the bottom, like where the label is. So you could, so everybody leaves. We had the whole party. It's about 6 o'clock. The sun's up now. Most of the people had left. The limos are gone. There's a couple of people in rooms and stuff like that. Me and my brother are the last ones to go. We're sleeping in some other room. We get up in the morning. We're like, oh, we're going to be late for the parade. We got to get going. So we actually called a cab, and there's a guy out front, and it was the DJ from the Apple. I forget his name right now, but he's like, hey, you guys know the cups in the pool, right? So we go out there, and sure enough, so we had to wake up a couple of guys. We're like, hey, listen, we got to get that. So Sebi, thank goodness Sebi was still there because he's huge. So we jumped in, we grabbed the cup, and it was so full that you'd have to like lift it up under the water, but you could only push it so far, and then the next guy would go down. So one would go up, and they were doing this one. They finally get it to the edge. The two of them would just lifted it up. They finally got it out, and it drained all the water out of the bottom. We grabbed that thing, grabbed the cup guy. We're like, we got to go. The cup guy was sleeping. So we grab him, we throw it in the trunk. We jump in a cab. Now we're late for the parade. So we show up to Valley Ranch, and I pull around the corner with my brother, and they're waiting. They're texting us like, where are you? I'm like, don't worry, we're coming. You'll be happy that we're just wait for us. Trust me, you're going to want to wait. We pull up, and Hitch is like, I can't believe you're late. Like, you're of all the people. I'm like, Matt, my brother turns around and go, we got this. And then we go, oh, okay, come on. So we had the cup. So we grab the cup, we go on the bus. And I mean, walking to the back of that bus, looking at the guys, they were so green. Everybody no one had slept. Guys are just sitting there like, oh, I'm going to die. We finally get to and then, as we started going about halfway there, the cops were doing their thing where they gave us the ride down there. And we got down there, and sure enough, there's Dimebag and Vinny dressed in green and playing the puck off song over and over. They were right behind us. We were the D-men, so all the D-men were on one. Then they had like the Carbonell line with Sloaney and those guys, and they had the captains on another. So we were the one right in front of Vinny and them. So we got to see the cup and listen to the tune the whole time. But it wound up being an awesome time, man. That party was legit.
Wow. Wow. All right. So, actually, I didn't know this. Dave Reed also said he dented the cup, but it wasn't like at that party. Reeder said that he was turning the corner and he hit like a door frame perfect. And so he actually had to bring it into he had this little workbench area and kind of had to chisel it back out. Because I was asking him about the pool party, and he said that's not the only time it was dented.
Oh, no. So it happened on the plane. So I used to carry around a little camera too. So, and I don't have the video anymore. I left it in a vehicle, and melted. It sucks so bad. I had us actually, because I didn't play in Buffalo, right? So I had the camera. I was sitting on the bus as as the guys got ready for the game. I was videoing. I was sitting on the back of the bus watching the guys come on. I was secretly videoing them. Like, just thinking, hey, this could be some pretty cool. We might catch some really cool stuff here on the way to the game. We win. We're on the airplane after I picked it out, and I actually have had it on the airplane out, and a certain individual picked it up and boom, and hit the roof. So there was that black rim on the bottom was like straight, so it went round, and then it had like a straight part on it. So that's the first dent I saw. When I got it, I was like one of the last guys to get it in August. The like bowl spun, like you like whatever you do, don't lift it up by the bowl. So I did it once. I lifted by the bowl, and it was like bending at the neck. It was in such rough shape. Our boys, they did a number on it. So you had to hold it by the neck and then hold it by kind of on the bottom. You didn't even want to touch the black piece either. It was just so partied on. It had seen better days by the time I got it. Oh yeah, there was a lot.
Wow.
Yeah.
So were you amazed when you were obviously a blue liner? Watching Sergei Zubov's career, I always felt as though he was in slow motion and like he was just ahead. And like that one timer from the point, I mean, we can get into it another time, Luke, but I hate that slap shots are going away in today's NHL. Like to me, that's a beautiful thing, that accurate slap shot from the point. I think that's a weapon on the power play. They just don't use anymore. It's all about the tip in front of the net. But I mean, I remember like, you could anticipate the crowd was waiting for that puck, especially on the power play, to go to Zubov for that one timer.
Yeah. And the other team knew it too. Right.
Yeah.
And it still got off. It's like the Ovechkin thing. He's shooting, but you also know he's going to shoot 10 times. One of them is going to go in because eventually getting hit by it as a defenseman, you're blocking it, it's going to hurt. So Zuby was, and he had a wrist shot too that he kind of like the McDavid thing that I'll talk about now. Zubov would do that. He had his hands out in front of him. He kind of just pushed down on his stick and the puck would go up. There was no recoil. He used the ice and the stick to kind of use what do they call that thing? The flex point, whatever, like that. But he knew how to use the stick as a strength before anybody. Zuby was incredible to watch. Zubov, Hull, and Madonna before like skating around the ice. Lettinen was pretty good at it. They could handle the puck and the passes. They would rip the puck so hard and like grab it and one time it to each other. And then they'd like kind of chuckle and do one to you. And it would almost like break your stick. But they could all do it like so quick and every single day. Every warm up. It was like, it was just like, what?
Were you one of those guys that stuck around after the game? Apparently like Zubov and a couple of the other guys would just sit, crack open some beers.
Yeah, so the D-man, we always met in the sauna. So being the rookie, my job was I had to go get his ashtray. So I would set a little can. There's like a little bucket. I put ice in that. I'd put some beers in there. And then I had to get his ashtray and his cigarettes and his lighter. And Zuby, so in reunion, when you came out of the room, you'd kind of go around the corner to go up to the wives' room. It was on the middle level, the mezzanine level, but we had like a little fire hallway that you could go into. So that's where Zuby would go and have his darts. So I'd go in there, I'd put 4 beers, his little cigarette, his ashtray, put his lighter in there, and that was my job to go set up Zuby. Then I'd go back, take all my gear off, do my little bike ride, and then I get to go hang out with the boys and then hang out and have some beers in the sauna with the fellas. That was that was a reunion. It was a lot of fun. We had a little club there. Yeah, it was neat, man. And then from there we'd go up and see the wives, and most everybody would be already out of there, like the autograph seekers, and that would be out of the wives' room by then. And then we'd hang out with the wives for a little bit and head off to the old reunion club.
So then you had your rookie year after that, your official rookie year, so to speak. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, an interesting thing happened, and I wanted to get your perspective. You're traded to the Wild around the NHL draft, but then 2 weeks later, you're traded back to the Stars.
Yeah.
And my question was Did you know that you were heading back to Dallas, or was that one of
No.
those things where you're prepping, ready to go to Minnesota, and then next thing you know, it's like, oh,
Yeah.
you know what? We don't have to move.
Yeah, I was choked about it too. I mean, nothing against Minnesota or anything, but I didn't want to be go to an expansion thing. I was actually going to get picked up by Columbus, is why it happened. So Columbus had kind of said, "Yeah, we're going to take this kid." All right, so we won't do that. I think it was Columbus, or Atlanta, one of the other teams that were coming in. So they were going to take me in the draft. So a way to basically protect me was to send me to Minnesota. So they sent me to Minnesota a couple of weeks later. I got traded back for Pavel Patera, I think was the kid's name. Um, but not knowing, because it's just one of those things that you do. So you come back. Uh, After I got back, all the other guys were like, "Yeah, man, we wanted to tell you." We all kind of knew. Eddie was the first guy that called me. He's like, "Hey, like, we all knew. We As soon as we all called Hicks, as soon as you got traded to Minnesota, that as soon as that draft is over, you got to get him back here." All that jazz. So they brought me back. So it was really a lot of the guys that stepped up to get me back. That was the that again. That's that team. That's like team camaraderie we had. We had a great group of guys in that room. So that's why I got back here.
And then you head to Tampa, which
Yep.
kind of begins the run to the cup, and replace Madano, Zubov, Lettinen with Lacavier, Martin St. Louis, Brad
Andre Waugh.
Richards.
You can't forget Andre Waugh. You got to have Andre Waugh in there. Come on.
I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, our top line, yeah, we go from this older, really leadership driven captains on every other team to a bunch of guys that didn't work out in other organizations that were touted to be good players but didn't work out here. So those guys being like Dan Doyle was in Florida. He was a non-drafted player, wound up in Florida, and the coach hated him and told him he'd never amount to anything. Winds up in Tampa Bay, gets a shot with a different coach with a different mindset. The guy winds up winning gold medals for Team Canada, Stanley Cups, leader in San Jose, leader in New York. So Nolan Pratt, a guy that played limited ice time in Colorado, gets traded to Tampa Bay. Now he's a top four guy. He's a shutdown guy. He's got a definitive role. Wins the cup. Now he's coaching for the Colorado Avalanche. Wins a cup. Just extends his career. Chris Dingman, supposed to be this big tough guy that can score 50, Al Secord type player, gets rejected from in Calgary. They bring him down to Tampa. They put him on a checking line. He accepts the role, wins a cup. It's just that was the type of team that we were. You got Vinny Lecavalier, the kid that got too much money. He's too ego. That is every single bit. Any bad word anyone ever said about Vinny, I was the same way. I thought he was a punk playing against him because of his reputation. When I met him, I was like, wow, they are so rough on this guy. He is the sweetest guy. His heart is like as big as anyone's. He gives so much back to the community, and and let's not forget, an amazing hockey player. Richie, same way, kind of just getting into the league. Got on Vinny's coattails and rode it hard and did a great job of putting the puck in the net. Marty St. Louis, Ruslan Fedotenko, fantastic player. Never even heard of him until I got there. Never even heard of the guy. And then he comes in, he's playing on our top line with Lecavalier, and dominating, absolutely dominating teams. So yeah, when you look back at that team, I look at a team of guys that were a lot of people had given up on, and John Tortorella had found a way to push us in every which way possible to gel as a team, to kind of bring out the best player you possibly, that I'll show you if you, and silence the doubters. No one believes in us. Let's make people believe in us again. And that's what we did, man. And it all comes out of those guys, right out of our leadership group.
I'm so enjoying this conversation. And one of the things that I'm fascinated by is you're one of the few people that have won 2 cups in the South. So, you're a part of, because I say hockey isn't as big as it is today in Dallas without that 99 Cup team. And I would say the same thing in Tampa. I mean, going to Tampa now and watching games, I mean, it's a show and the fans are into it. That base loves it. I mean, granted, yeah, the team that went on to win a couple of cups, they were certainly special, but it started with you guys.
Yeah, and the fans. There was such a sense of community. It's the same way in Tampa. When we went to Tampa, it was the same way. The sense of community that we had there, there wasn't anyone else really. There was the Bucks. The Bucks had just won. But we didn't have basketball. That's Orlando. So that was our building. The St. Pete Times Forum, that is known as the Lightning's building. That's where they play. Where the Bucks play, that's where the Bucks play. That's it. Baseball, that was way out in Clearwater. So we had our own area, our own kind of mystique. We walked around there's signs everywhere. Every single street had a bolt on it. They rallied around us. You had a bad day, there's a lot of snowbirds up there, so they let you have it. So like it's like letting down your mom and dad. They're like, hey man, like pass the puck, or you got to fight that guy. So there was a lot of giving back to from the fans. It was a lot of fun, but it just kept on growing and growing, and you could just feel that momentum. You look at I remember my first game in Tampa Bay, looking across the building and seeing Scott Stapp, Mark Tremonti, and Morgan Rose. They're two guys from Creed and one from Seven Dust. They were the only three guys in the whole section, and they had their feet sitting over the like you can pick them out. I
Wow.
was playing for Dallas at the time, and then I was playing for Dallas against Tampa, and we are like, they were my guests. So we see, fast forward 3 years later, sold out buildings, sold out tickets for weeks. The parking lot was sold out. They were projecting the games on the side of a parking lot, and there was 10,000 people outside. Like this wasn't even just in the finals. This just slowly kind of happened, and then we couldn't go anywhere. It was amazing. When you have that sense of feeling, you just want to be a part of it. Our family just want to be a part of it. Our friend, the community want to be a part of it. I'm glad that they're winning now again, still, because Tampa's a great city to be winning in.
All right, we're gonna have you on again because I want to talk about modern NHL with you because I don't want to take too much of your time. By the way, you've been a badass and you're
Thanks,
great,
man.
and I think the Spits and Suds listeners are gonna love you.
Awesome.
Um, but you are a part of a historic trivia question. Which do you know what I'm about to? That trivia question. I'll give you a
No,
hint. It
because there's a couple of them.
Has to do with Kamloops.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No.
Okay, so it's one of the more famous things to do, especially in the minors now.
Okay.
For Spits and Suds listeners, Brad Lukowich was the first person to score, which initiated a teddy bear toss.
That's right. That's right. I think Tux tried to steal it too. If you watch the video, you see him get up and he's sliding across the ice, but everybody comes to me and they're high fiving me, and he kind of went like, ah. He was pretty close to Tux. Tux might have had a couple of goals that year like that. Yeah, that was Don Larson actually came up with that idea. And again, I was one of the humanitarians that ran around the city that way that year. So it was just a spitball idea. I believe they may have even done some stuff in like Tri-Cities or in the other areas in the league. They had thought of it, but we were the ones that actually executed it. And it comes up every year, and I get people going on there and telling me that Tux, they think Tux touched it. And I'm like, no, that's just typical Tux. But it's enjoyable every year. It's usually the same people giving me plugs. Here's your one day of fame.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, millions of dollars in charity have been raised now because
Yeah,
of different teddy bear tosses and
yeah,
stuff like that.
yeah,
It's pretty awesome. So you are part
yeah.
of history.
That's right.
I don't think you can make any money off of it, but you
No,
are a part of
no,
history. Um,
no.
and finally, I'm going to end on this because I like to do my deep dive of prep. So
Okay,
I asked Craig, and Greg Finley, our producer of Spits and
okay,
Suds, is going to play this for you. I
okay.
said, is there anything I can bring up on Luke, or is there any chirping that you'd like to do with Luke? So, Greg, hit what Craig had to say.
Luke comes to our alumni skates on Fridays.
Yep.
Gets there, takes his equipment down from his locker, lays it out like we're getting dressed and all that kind of stuff. And then, we're getting dressed to get ready to go on there. And as I'm walking out the door, there's Luke sitting in the lounge having a drink. Never steps on the ice. So there's I give it to him all the time. I'm like, Luke, bet you're coming on the ice. Well, I was gonna. And then he ends up talking room, and he has a little whiskey, probably a little drink too, and we don't see him until we get off the ice.
Yeah, that is true. Was true. There was a little bit of time there that I wasn't too happy about going on the ice. My feet were pretty sore. I'll give you 5 other excuses. The same thing I tried to do with Luds, and he just goes, "Nah, yeah, whatever." I don't care. I really don't care, Luke. You were marked as playing, and now the teams are messed up because they stacked the other team or they stacked your team. So that's kind of, I get that every week. Yeah, are you really playing? So I'll actually just put a little blurb in there and let them know, yes, I'm actually playing this time, or no, I'm just coming to eat the food. They've got good food there too.
Did you go to Halloween and have to dress up?
We had practice this year. I'm coaching 16U Texas Tigers out of Farmers Branch. And we decided we were going to a tournament in Vegas on Thursday. So it would have been our last skate. If we would have canceled that skate, we wouldn't have had a whole week off. So we decided to have a practice anyways. We let the boys dress up, and we just did the scrimmage. And I actually put on Kari Lettinen's gear. So I dressed up as Kari for Christmas, or for the skate. And it did not go so well for me. I'm not a goalie, man. That is some tough stuff. It's so hot. Like, you're just, it's so hot. The whole time you're like, oh my gosh, like, you're trying to find ways to get air in there or out. So I don't know how they do it. To this day, I gotta have that conversation with Kari. How do you keep yourself cool? It is unbelievable how hot it is in there.
Yeah, no, it's not only hot. I did it once for like a charity thing at in between one of the periods, and the Stars thought it would be funny to bring out like a semi-professional player and shoot on me. And I couldn't even see the puck. It was whizzing by me. And then one was coming right at me. I'm like, I'm going to save it. I saved the puck, Luke. My whole arm swelled.
You weren't wearing Kari's gear.
Yeah. So Turco was, I asked him afterwards. He's like, yeah, you just get used to it.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, I guess, I'm glad I didn't have that problem my whole career, but holy man. Yeah, it was fun. I had a good time. I would do it again. I would definitely do it again. But I would make sure the gear fits a little better, and maybe have a talk with Kari first, because there's got to be a button that turns on an air conditioning or something, because it was just, wow. It was so hot. That's all I remember the whole time, is just being in there, just like, keep looking at the clock and like, when is this over? I'm going to pass out from the heat. I didn't stop many times, so I didn't have your problem.
Our follow-up, we'll do it in person. Frosty's on me.
All right.
And thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it. You're a badass. This was awesome.
Thanks, man.
Love the stories. Love hearing about your upbringing. And we'll catch up soon, my man.
You got it. Thanks for having me.
And thanks for another edition of Spits and Suds One Timer. Thanks for listening on 105.3 The Fan.